Hi there, Axis and Allies players. Welcome to the Nest. Gamer Haven going on here. Got my Sonic, got Skyrim in the back, got Armada on the other side, got some Mass Effect over here, had some Star Wars going last night, but most importantly, we've got Axis and Allies and a little bit of history. So while Germany is stealing France's sweet roll, we're going to go ahead and hit that explosion. Welcome to July of 1940. Remember, Axis players, if you have been paying attention to the rules, we're not going to get any more SS units for another year. Suck. But that's okay, because we have our little players that we've got going on, and Germany's going to step in and take France's sweet roll today. So here we go. Germany of 1940. 38 IPPs is what we're starting off with. We bought a sub, 3 mechanized, and 3 medium tanks and 1 infantry. We had a heavy armor tech roll, and we rolled a 7, leaving 7. We had a couple of different things going on here. I'm going to focus on the board a little bit. We're going to move our box back. Our convoy here in the Mid-Atlantic, England won that one. It was a 5-7 roll. And the convoy in the North Atlantic, England also won that one. It was an 8-10 roll. And let's see, up here in the Netherlands, we decided that we're going to step in there. Germany jumped in, took 3 infantry from West Germany and a fighter from Stettin up against Netherlands 2 infantry. Germany took Netherlands with no survivors, so no wounded out of that one. And they went up +2. Right behind that, Belgium up against Germany. Germany decided to bring in 2 infantry, 4 mechanized, 5 medium tanks and artillery, the 3rd SS and the 2nd SS, and the Munich's 1st SS. Now, if you guys remember, that was infantry motorized, or 2 motorized units. So lots of boom boom, lots of pew pews going on. 1 wounded from Germany, and they took Belgium at a +2. Blitzkrieg into Baccardia. Germany takes all of their units on and takes on 1 more wounded and takes Baccardia as well. So we're up here in the corner. So that was a +1 for that. 1st SS and regular mechanized had to stay behind. I'm going to throw around the mechanized units here because that just seemed like a good idea. And everything else blitzes onto La Paris. La Paris had the had 3 infantry, a mechanized, a medium tank, a militia, an artillery, and a tactical bomber, plus a city fortification that jumped up their infantry +1. Germany brought in their Luftwaffe from West Germany, so that brought in 2 medium bombers, 2 tacticals, and 2 fighters. But as you can see, all of the little swastikas here, Germany has succeeded in taking France. So yes, we did take France's sweet roll, and it was beautiful. So Germany takes 3 for Paris. They implement the Vichy government. So if you guys see these things that look like little anchors, those actually aren't anchors. And I don't know if you guys have ever pulled it up, but on here there are little words, little words. Got my big magnifying glass out last night, pulled it up. It actually says "Work Job God" on it in French. So Lorraine loses 3 infantry, a mechanized, and a fortification. Germany takes +3 for Lorraine, +1 from Normandy, and +1 for Bordeaux. The major factory that was in Paris here is now a minor factory right there. Now, the fun fact for this, guys, is that France, yes, we took your sweet roll and we stepped on your toes and now we're drinking your wine, and that's okay, because France, this is actually in your benefit. German players taking on France by historical concept was good, because that means that France didn't have communist control over them. So this is actually in your favor. Remember when we had the nationalist Spain going on with the Civil War in Spain? The idea was for Spain to not turn communist, because that's a potential victory point for the Allies players. So actually Germany taking France is in your benefit even if it is historical, even if we do, you know, bump up and stuff like that. So keep that in mind. As long as Russia doesn't control you, you're actually in the good. So that's also a good thing. The cruiser in our staging is now German and not communist. Also a good thing for France. Marseille, North Africa, and French Indochina have turned Vichy. So we've got these going on here. Anything that is South Sub-Sahara, Madagascar, and over here in Syria is Free French. So that's that unit there. That just shows that the Free French are controlling that. We have considered bringing in the partisan French that actually went in and decided that they were going to do some espionage and bombing against Germany, as was historically correct. So, but we haven't decided. We do have the pieces for that. We recently got those in too. The fleets all turned Vichy. Got one right here. It's tipped over. Now the Vichy units also cannot move. They cannot conduct combat unless they are directly attacked. However, Germany does control the Vichy funds, so that has something to do with that. That is really good too. Marseille down here took on 3 infantry, an artillery, and a fighter for that. And Germany took France's 20 IPPs. Goodbye, Treaty of Versailles. The Money Islands over here, because of Germany taking Netherlands, are now under Britain's control. Any money that they receive, which is actually a +9, when Britain receives that at the end of the turn, Britain can actually divvy that up as necessary. So that means between Euro Brits, Pac Brits, and ANZAC, the money can be distributed as needed. So if the Pac Brits, do we have something moving outside? Awesome. So the Pac Brits could always have some of that funds to lend lease to KMT China, or ANZAC can use that to drop another ship in the water to help protect the Money Islands. Any way it happens, that's something that is very potential for Euro Brits and the entire Britain Commonwealth to keep in mind. Next page. Hey, I can read my notes today. This is awesome. So, and then Germany also jumped in and took Narvik here, and that was the rest of Normandy. This is a +1 on bonus warfare because Narvik is now Axis aligned, and Germany can annex any of the 3 of Romania, Hungary, or Bulgaria. Now, if Germany decides they're going to take Romania, that actually boosts Russian production. We don't exactly want that to happen right now, so we chose Hungary instead. Hungary, we gained a fighter, 2 infantry, and +2 IPPs. And for our non-combat, our planes that were in battle, the Netherlands fighter returned to Stettin, and everything, all the planes that were in Paris are now in West Germany. We had our hospital and our 5th SS are railed over here to Warsaw. So this is this block here. So we've moved this block into Paris from West Germany over to Paris so that we have all of our stuff there, and our block here in Warsaw. Our Munich Mountaineer and infantry are now sitting in Austria. And for our placement, our infantry itself went into Warsaw. 3 mechanized and 2 medium tanks here into Stettin, and 1 medium tank went into Sudetenland, and our sub went into the Baltic. And this is kind of to the idea to try to get it replaced over in the convoy area. IPP count, German players, you are now sitting at 54 IPP plus the 20 that we just took from France, so 74 IPPs. Use that wisely. I'm going to, I know a lot of things that I can really do with that to just make things a little interesting. And we'll get to that here in the next round. So, on to Russia. Russia started off with 31 IPPs this round, and CCP China started off with 3. CCP China purchased an infantry that went to Communist China. There was no movement and no combat. Russia, on the other hand, good for you guys. Tech roll for heavy armor. They needed 5. They rolled an 11. Russia now can put out heavy tanks. That's awesome. So we decided to purchase 2 infantry, 2 mechanized, 2 medium tanks, and an artillery. Our artillery went to Kiev. The 2 medium tanks and the 2 mechanized went to Orokhozetsk. and our 2 infantries were split up between Smolensk and Leningrad. All of our wounded come back, so we have red players to put back on the board later, which is a good thing because we actually don't have that many, so the more wounded that show up, the not so good it is, so we have to keep that one in mind too. We might actually have to start using red chips to do that. Okay, so Russia moves to annex the Baltic states, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania up here. And our land party from Vapori moves south. So that's from here. We moved down here. The only thing that stayed behind was 2 infantry, and that was to hold ground. Our tank in Stalingrad is now in Donetsk-Kuban. And Russia ends up with 40 IPPs. Now, the concept behind this game is that it is a global war. There's actually 3 factions, not just Axis and Allies. There's Axis, Allies, and the Communist Party. So the Communist Party has a chance to actually win this war over the top of Axis and Allies. Victory points included, and some of those include some of the Baltic states that they take as long as they stay out of Axis hands. So that's something else to keep in mind. So Russia players, think about it. Think about France, think about those Baltic states and what you really need to protect before Germany decides that they're just going to steamroll over you because micromanaging cocaine and Hitler, that's just the way it worked. Other side of the board, let's go to Japan. Japan started off with 19 IPPs. They put their Yamato in placement. It went to C-Zone 56 here. They paid the debt off on the carrier, so it will be moving up to the next round. A capital ship here caused America to go up 3 IPPs. They also purchased an infantry, artillery, and light tank, which got placed in Tokyo. Manchuria had IPPs, which they picked up a Kwangtung army to replace the one lost last round, and an armored car. Those went to J-Hole. And the only battling that happened was Henan went after Nanking. So this is probably going to be a stalemate thing. It's going to go back and forth for a little while. Japan brought in the 4 regular Marines, like these. Infantry, 2 fighters, and 2 tacticals. Up against Nanking's 2 infantry, cavalry, and artillery that was KMT. You see the blue pieces. Japan took Nanking back. Plus 2 IPPs for that. And the planes returned back here to Henan. This is like kind of a good spot. So if you really focus in here, short of this particular territory right here, Japan and Manchuria controlled the entire coastline of Asia. So as this happens, it doesn't mean a lot because Japan still has to put units there in order to keep moving to the moving here towards the west so that we can try to get that Burma Road. So yes, we have all of this. Now, Japan also annexed Saigon, which was part of the Vichy government, and the benefit to that is that we waited until it became Vichy government so that there were no repercussions against France or Britain. Had we done this beforehand, it would have brought Britain and France into the war against Japan. So that's something also to think about. So we have a transport that was in Saigon that is now moving up here to C-Zone 38. And we had 6 SNLFs that we put on transports and now are sitting down here waiting to get onto different islands. So that's going on. And the Manchuria Imperial Guard from Taiwan moved back up here to Peking. And the Kwangtung Army in Peking, basically they switched spots. Japan ends up with 23 IPPs. War's going to keep going. We're not going to keep stopping. We got a lot of things to do. Just to keep a heads up, once this is over and we've finished this game, we do actually have a test play game that we're going to try. It's called the Wars of the World. So we're going to start with the 7 Years' War and carry all the way through. And the outcome of each war will depict how each war after that goes on. That's something to keep in mind. We're also going to do some Battle of the Bulge, Guadalcanal, and other things. So stick around. We'll see you back here in just a few minutes. Hi guys, welcome back. We're going to go ahead and give you guys a little bit of history before we get started on the Euro-Brits, Pac-Brits, and Anzac. First of all, if you haven't seen this, The Darkest Hour with Gary Oldman in it, about Winston Churchill, for those of you who love history, give it a shot. It was a great movie. A lot of descriptions of what Churchill went through as Prime Minister during World War II. And very dated, and also him learning the difference between this versus this. So that's something to keep in mind. On the history with Churchill in mind, Churchill felt that the country of England was very secluded once Germany took France and Paris fell. That in mind, and knowing that the Vichy government had taken over the ships had been anchored outside of Marseille. To the board real quick, I'm going to show you guys a couple things. So we have the fleet that was here in Marseille was anchored, and Churchill had told them, basically said, give up your ships or we will shoot them down. Vichy France decided to give them the finger, thinking that England wouldn't step forward. The reason Churchill did that because of the concept that this could possibly go under complete German control, meaning Germans could annex Vichy France and Marseille, take those ships, and then the scale of Axis powers in the Mediterranean would completely tip in the Axis favor. And that was something Churchill was very, very fearful of, so that he didn't want to lose that control of the Mediterranean, or possibility lose complete Mediterranean plausibility. That included Egypt, and over here in Transjordan, all of these areas where his units would be completely cut off from Euro-Britain. That in mind, we have decided that we can signify that in the game. And the way to do that is that in order for a country to attack a neutral power, they have to have political repercussions. In this case, it happens to be IPPs. England would have to attack that fleet, paying 10 IPPs for the political repercussions that Churchill witnessed and had to go through in the crap hole that he was pretty much delivered on a platter when he became Prime Minister. As Prime Minister, he decided that this was going to happen anyway, told the world, he says, look, we're by ourselves. We have no friends in our pockets and you guys aren't helping us out. We've got to do something in our favor. Not in those many words, and a lot more colorful words were used by Churchill, because if you know the history of Churchill, he was a very colorful person. Great man, great leader. And so we are going to take care of that. Now the concept here is that Germany would also have the availability in the next round to roll to see if they could take that fleet for their own. They would take a D12, roll it, a 1 to 6 would gain them the fleet, or a 7 to 12 would lose the fleet and it would remain Vichy France. By the rules, nothing can be done with a country, section, zone, or anything once it has been taken until the next round, signifying that it is completely under that control. That in mind, England took advantage of the turn order and did pay those 10 IPPs. In this particular case, that entire fleet could not fire back because they were anchored. By history, they lost over 2,000 members of maintenance units, civilians, and military factors through that fleet because of it. England did not go to war with France, but France took a step back and said, hey, they're not kidding. So now our British fleet, this particular fleet here, is now sitting on the coast of Marseille, and that is one of the combat moves that England did make this particular round. With our history in that, we had a couple of other things that I do want to mention here. I have to find, Free France has the availability to open up the partisan. Now, the first half of this video, I did mention the partisan units. What that is the French Resistance or the French Rebellion, depending on which history book you open and how it is actually depicted. What they did was espionage, spook work, spy work. They blew up rail lines, they assassinated officers, basically committed complete chaos across home country France to try to avoid German units taking over and just completely destroying what they had before. For us to signify the French partisans, we do have a roll on a D12 also. 11 or 12 by the rule. This is actually in the rule books, guys. 11 or 12 is a successful roll, and they would get a partisan acrylic that they could place in the home country of France anywhere that there is a swastika holding that ground. If that was the case, the German faction would not be able to gain those IPPs, and they would actually lose them until they attacked the partisans with an infantry-based unit only. So that's your militia, your mountaineers, Marines, regular infantry, whatever the case may be. No tanks, no planes, no artillery, nothing like that, because of the fact that they were utilized as spies. So they were shooting in the dark at these partisan units to try to get rid of them for everything that they were doing to cause the chaos to the German units. So also, Italy's going to step it up this round. Beforehand, if Italy had taken on the chance of declaring war, they would have had probably easily a four-front war. Now they have one, because Germany took France. All the French units are gone. The Vichy French units are gone. The only thing they've got to worry about is keeping Britain under control in the Mediterranean and in Africa and off of German's tail. That also opens up the German Lend-Lease program from Germany to Italy, and the availability to send units, IPPs, or whatever. It also increases Italy's wartime bonus, which also happened. Their production increased and more things started to happen. So we're going to get back into here. The units that were in the Vichy France from Marseille was a cruiser, a destroyer, a torpedo boat destroyer, and 2 submarines that Britain sunk on the concept of Churchill saying, give us your ships or watch them sink. So that happened. Our non-combat for Euro-Brits, South Africa continues to move north, and we had a transport that is now moving up here towards London. Didn't quite make it that far, but it is here. So we can see that. We also had a tech roll for the Euro-Brits. For their ASW, they needed 10. They rolled a 4, leaving them 6 IPPs left to be able to unlock those advanced submarine warfare. Their cruiser went into placement here in Sea Zone 24 as well. And we'll get to this battleship here that's been wounded in that fight up against Germany. They also purchased a fighter and an artillery that we put here in London. The battleship that was damaged has to go to a shipyard to be able to repair. This is actually the closest one to where they were, because they were here in the Danish Straits, and it moved them here so that they could get to that shipyard. So basically this is actually here in this sea zone. And the 2 cruisers that were in this particular battle are now sitting here in the English Channel. That still leaves the Kiel Canal open for submarine passage by Germans or Russians or French, the Free French as we have here, and whoever may be able to pass through that. The Free French is locking down those the Danish Straits with their regular units, but that Kiel Canal is still open for the submarines to be able to pass through. So if they do pass through, they can actually avoid the destroyers here and come up around to get into the convoy lines in the Atlantic. Our Pack Brits, they bought an artillery and a KMT, or artillery that went to KMT Union, and a medium bomber that they placed here in Calcutta. The Netherlands subs went to Malaya, right here. And we had a Netherlands destroyer that is joining our fleet here in Calcutta. And the Netherlands transport that is here, kind of tipped over, is on its way back to, or I'm sorry, here is on its way back to London. In Anzac, we purchased a destroyer that placed in Sydney there. And the cost for a destroyer in Australia, because of their seclusion from the rest of the world, is actually 8 IPPs. Their transport loaded up a light tank and infantry. They're heading to New Guinea. And a destroyer was sent over here for convoy escort on this particular line for Japanese convoy escort. Netherlands had those 9 IPPs that are split up amongst everybody. They got split evenly, 3 on 3 on 3. So that was where that was at. Now back to Free France. Their roll for the partisans was not successful. They rolled an 8. Sucks, but when you're only given a 1 or 2 chance off of a 12, you know, you have a 1 in 6 chance of getting that. That's what happens. So they're going to probably try for that next round. We'll find out. Italy, welcome back, Italy. Our Axis players are now in the war. Italy has declared war on a major power, mostly England, which raises America global tension a +3. And they have their naval port that is put into placement that went here to Tripoli. And our cruiser is put into the next stage. Waiting for the opportune moment for France to fall. That was a good idea, except for the fact that when we did decide to take the Italian fleet here and put it on top of the fleet that attacked Vichy France, it didn't work out nearly as well as we wanted it to. We also had a convoy raid here. The English lost all 6 of their IPPs that was available, and France actually lost one of theirs as well. So that Italian fleet war, the naval battle, included a battleship, cruiser, 2 destroyers, a torpedo destroyer, and 3 coastal submarines that were in Italy. The battleship did take a hit, and Italy lost all of their subs and their torpedo boat destroyer. They ended up having to retreat. The battleship that was here also took a hit, so they lost it as well. Listen, with all our boats capsizing, that's weird. But this is actually good for Italy, because England's battleship now has to go find a shipyard of their own to sail that battleship back so that they can get it repaired. So that battleship is actually going to leave the Mediterranean this coming up next round. So that's in Italy's favor for that to happen, because they hit and defend at an 8. So that in mind, and if they're wounded or they have 1 damage on them like ours do, then they actually hit and defend at a 7. So it's not that much of a difference. So leaving the Mediterranean Sea is a very, very good thing. And again, Germany can begin to lend lease to Italy, so that'll start next round too. America and KMT. America was sitting at 25 IPPs in their pocket when they started. They had a tech roll for heavy bombers. They needed 23. They rolled a 7, leaving them 16. They paid 6 to move their Iowa class up to the next stage. Their production roll put them at a +9. They purchased a light carrier to start, and they purchased a strategic bomber. Now, our threshold, according to our cards, is 35 at this point. The next one is 45. 35 at the threshold of IPPs, which America has surpassed at this point, means that they can reinforce the Pacific Islands. They can move a fleet to the Atlantic, and they can put, or I'm sorry, move a fleet to Hawaii, and then they can put ships on escort duty in the Atlantic, which is going to help England out significantly with the submarines bombing the crap out of their convoys. Next stage is at 45. If Japan doesn't decide to go to war before then America can actually start attacking German U-boats without repercussion and without going to war. KMT purchased 2 infantry and a militia, which they put in Zhejiang. And our escort destroyer, or our destroyer that was in New York, is now on escort duty. So we've got double escort duty here in the North Atlantic, but there is no cap here. So that's something to also keep in mind, because this is the only one we have on cap at the time here, and then one here in the Mid-Atlantic. So it's technically a combat move, and at the same time it's not. It's just kind of putting a boat out there to float around and shoot anything that moves that doesn't look familiar. KMT decided to get their hankies out of their purse and take a battle chance. They took Shanxi and went after Peking with 3 infantry and 2 cavalry. Didn't work out so well for them, but you know, that's what the hanky was for, so they could dry those tears and wipe their noses. They retreated with 2 wounded, and Peking had a wounded of Kwang Tung, and they lost an infantry in that particular battle. Also, the other Hankies that came out, Sichuan went up against Henan. Wasn't exactly a brilliant thing for them either. KMT ended up having to retreat after losing almost all of their pieces for that one. And Henan is untouched. So Henan is still standing strong. So we can take a look at this box here. We still have our bombers, our tacticals, our fighters, our infantry, and our artillery. No wounded. Not a lot of red on the board this round, and that's okay. The 2 infantry that were wounded last time were in Communist China, and now they moved to reinforce Shaanxi. And the artillery that was in Yunnan is now in Sichuan. America moved their fleet to Hawaii. Well, most of it. 2 battleships, 2 cruisers, and 4 destroyers are sitting here off the Hawaiian Islands and off of Pearl Harbor. And America finalizes at 39 IPPs, and KMT idolizes at 5. And the strategic bomber got placed in New York. Global tensions that are coming up. Romania and Bulgaria are going to increase their infantry by 1 each. This is something else that comes along with the vinyl global war game, is that global tensions for those parties who are actually neutral will actually start increasing and start showing in the units that are placed. More history to come. So, a little side note, we are planning a trip to Egypt next year. We're going to go ahead and film some of that while we're there. We're going to take you guys with YouTube around the world with us. So like it, live it, love it. If you like what we're doing, shoot a comment below. We'd love to see what you got. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a good day.